started off small. Just little things I could brush off, like a misplaced box here and there. Being a night stalker, I'm used to the silence. It's usually just me, the hum of the lights, and the monotonous routine of unpacking, shelving, and organizing. But tonight, it felt off. At first, I thought I was just tired. Aisle 5 would be fully stocked, and then I'd turn back and notice an item or two lying in the middle of the floor. The boxes I'd neatly stacked would somehow end up scattered. Still, I told myself it was my mind playing tricks. Then, I started hearing noises, faint shuffling sounds coming from empty aisles, like someone dragging their feet. I'd whip my head around, but every time, nothing. Just long, empty corridors stretching out under the fluorescent lights. "You're just sleep-deprived," I kept muttering, trying to shake it off. But then I heard it. A soft, deliberate thud from somewhere deep in the back. Sounded too real, too purposeful. I paused, listening hard. My gut twisted. I wasn't alone. Someone or something was here. I just couldn't see them. Yet, it was around 3 a.m. when I saw him. I was stocking the frozen food section, halfway through the shift and running on caffeine fumes. I turned to grab a box of pizzas, and that's when I noticed a guy standing at the end of the aisle. He was just watching me. Something about him felt out of place. He wore a Walmart uniform, same blue vest, same logo, but it looked old, like a version I'd seen in the training videos they show us on the first day. The design had changed years ago. Who was this guy? "Hey, you need help with something?" I called out, my voice sounding too loud in the quiet aisle. He didn't answer, didn't even flinch. He just stared for a second longer, then turned and walked away, disappearing around the corner. My first thought was that he must be some new hire, maybe a trainee working a shift he wasn't supposed to. But why was he wearing an outdated uniform? And why hadn't I been told? I jogged after him, turning the corner, and found myself alone. I looked up and down the aisles, nothing. No sign of him anywhere. I searched for a solid 10 minutes before giving up and heading back to the front of the store, where Sarah and Matt were sorting deliveries. "Hey, did you see the new guy?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though my pulse was still racing. They looked at me like I'd lost it. "What new guy?" Sarah frowned. "Nobody else is here tonight except us." That cold, creeping feeling settled in my gut again. I didn't want to believe I'd imagined it. So, on my next break, I did some digging on the store's history, half expecting to find nothing. Instead, I stumbled on a local news article. "Walmart employee missing. Disappeared during night shift." The picture showed a young man, probably in his early 20s, wearing that same outdated uniform. My hands went cold as I stared at the screen. That couldn't be the guy I'd just seen. Could it? After that night, things got worse. Much worse. At first, it was just small stuff. Boxes falling off shelves, lights flickering whenever I walked by. But soon, it was like the entire store was coming apart around me. Items would fly off racks when no one else was around. Shadows moved in the corners of my vision, slipping away the second I turned my head. I kept feeling this heavy sensation, like eyes boring into the back of my neck. Even when I was surrounded by stacks of products, I felt exposed, like I was standing in a spotlight. Then one night, while stocking the canned goods aisle, I saw him again. The same young man, the one from before, standing at the far end, half hidden in the shadows. This time, he wasn't just watching. His eyes, there was something in them. A silent, pleading look, almost like he was begging me to understand. I didn't run. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I forced myself to keep calm, stepping forward slowly. "Who are you?" I whispered, the words barely escaping my dry throat. He didn't respond, just turned and started walking away, glancing back once as if to make sure I was following. I hesitated, then trailed behind him, each step feeling heavier than the last. He led me through the aisles, deeper and deeper into the back, to an area we rarely used anymore. A dark, dusty storage section filled with forgotten stock and broken equipment. And then he vanished. 1 second he was there and the next just gone. I stood there, alone in the darkness, my breath echoing off the bare walls. This was it. This was where he'd been leading me. A chill ran down my spine as I realized. This was where the missing employee was last seen, all those years ago. Whatever was keeping him here, whatever had happened, it all started in this exact spot. And I was standing right in the middle of it. My pulse thundered as I searched the storage room, pushing aside old crates and dusty boxes. I didn't know what I was looking for, just that I had to find it. The air felt thick, suffocating, and the darkness seemed to press in from all sides. Then I saw him again, that pale, ghostly figure. He was standing by a stack of forgotten equipment, pointing at something wedged behind a pile of disused shelving. Okay, I'm looking," I muttered, my voice trembling as I squeezed past the junk. I half expected him to vanish like before, but he stayed, watching silently as I pried open a small, hidden compartment that I'd never noticed. My fingers brushed against something cold. I pulled out an old name badge, tarnished with age. David R. Night Stalker. My throat tightened. This had to be his. I dug deeper and found a set of keys and a small, faded notebook. As I flipped through its fragile pages, I felt my skin crawl. The notebook detailed a chilling story, a string of harassment, threats, and sinister warnings from another employee. Each entry grew darker, more desperate, until they just stopped. No sign-off, no conclusion, just emptiness. That's when it hit me, he hadn't just disappeared. He'd been silenced. I called the police right away, my hands shaking as I relayed what I'd found. They reopened the case with this new evidence, and within weeks, they tracked down his attacker, a former coworker who was already in prison for unrelated charges. It wasn't the closure I expected, but at least the truth was finally out. That night, as I clocked out, I felt a shift in the air. Something lighter, calmer. I turned around and there he was, standing by the exit. But this time, his face was different. No fear, no desperation. Just a small, grateful smile, like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. "Rest easy," I whispered. He nodded once, then faded away into the darkness, leaving me alone in the silent, empty store, finally at peace. Working the night shift at Walmart isn't exactly thrilling, but it pays the bills. Tonight, I've been stuck in the toy section alone. It's my job to straighten up the aisles before closing, but something feels wrong. As soon as I step into the aisle, I get the strange sense that I'm being watched. The shelves look messy, like someone's been rifling through them. But it's not just that. Some toys are slightly out of place, shifted in ways I know I didn't leave them. I kneel down to fix a row of action figures, but as I move one, a nearby doll catches my eye. Its head is tilted in my direction, wide glassy eyes staring blankly at me. For a second, I swear it wasn't facing this way before. I glance around, shaking off the feeling, telling myself I'm just tired. Still, I can't shake the unease creeping up my spine. Taking a deep breath, I keep working. But every time I look up, it's like the toys have moved again, just a fraction. There's no way anyone else is here. I'm alone, right? With every passing second, the silence feels heavier, like the aisles are holding their breath, watching me, waiting. I force myself to keep working, pushing the creepy thoughts out of my head. But as I start down the next aisle, something catches my eye, a flash of movement. I snap my head around just in time to see a doll, one of those old-fashioned ones with frilly dresses, slowly turning its head toward me. My heart skips a beat, subtle, almost imperceptible, but I know what I saw. Trying to stay calm, I step closer and nudge it back into place, making sure it's facing forward again. That's when I hear a low, mechanical hum. I turn around and see a toy train on a shelf, its tiny wheels spinning furiously along a short track. The thing's lit up, little lights blinking like it's putting on a show for me. I know I didn't turn it on. I lean over, flip the switch off, and wait. For a moment, everything's still. Then, the train suddenly jerks back to life, its wheels screeching against the track as it speeds up. A cold shiver runs through me. Something isn't right. But I laugh nervously, trying to brush it off. Cheap batteries. I mutter under my breath, even though I know it doesn't make sense. As I reach for the switch again, I freeze. Somewhere behind me, a child's giggle echoes softly down the empty aisle. I whip around, heart pounding, but there's no one there. I glance down the length of the aisle, but it's empty. Just rows and rows of plastic smiles and lifeless eyes staring back at me. Sweat beads on my forehead. The sound was so close. I swallow hard, my mouth dry, and try to tell myself it's just a toy somewhere malfunctioning. Just a glitch, right? But the laughter lingers, echoing faintly, like whoever or whatever it came from is just out of sight, waiting for me to look away again. I can't ignore it anymore. That laughter was real. I hesitate, then force myself to follow the sound, slowly making my way to the next aisle. My pulse is racing, every nerve in my body on edge. As I turn the corner, I stop dead in my tracks. A teddy bear, small, brown, with button eyes and a soft little smile, sits in the middle of the floor. I swear it wasn't there a minute ago. My gaze locks onto it, and I can't look away. The thing seems to be staring right at me, its head slightly tilted, like it's waiting for me. And then I see it, a small piece of paper tied around its neck. With trembling hands, I crouch down and pull the note free, holding it up to read. In a child's messy scrawl, it says just 5 words, "Play with me or else." My throat tightens. Who would leave something like this? A prank? But there's no one here. I drop the bear like it's burning hot and take a step back. Nope, I think. I'm done. Screw this. I'll just finish up and get the hell out of here. But the second I turn my back, everything goes to chaos. One by one, toys start falling from the shelves, clattering to the floor. A plastic doll launches off a top shelf, nearly hitting me in the head. The lights above flicker wildly, casting eerie shadows that make the aisles look distorted, almost alive. I'm rooted to the spot, breathing hard, trying to make sense of it. Then I feel it, something small yanking at the hem of my jeans. I look down and see nothing but empty air. Panic hits me hard, my body moving before my mind catches up. I bolt out of the aisle, skidding around the corner as more toys crash behind me, the sounds blending into a cacophony of scraping plastic and mocking laughter. I don't stop until I'm out of the toy section completely, chest heaving. What the hell was that? I glance back, but all I see is darkness and scattered toys, and that stupid bear, sitting in the middle of it all. I burst into the back room, my nerves shot. My manager, Steve, is sitting at his desk, looking half asleep. I slam the door behind me, panting. What the hell is going on in the toy aisle, Steve? My voice is strained, barely holding back panic. He blinks at me, confused. What are you talking about? The toys are moving, man. I heard a kid's laugh. There's a note on a damn bear saying, "Play with me or else." And things were pulling on me. I stammer, feeling insane even as I say it. Steve's expression shifts. He sighs heavily, rubbing his temples like he's heard this before. Look, Kyle, calm down. He glances around to make sure we're alone, then leans in closer. I didn't think it'd happen again so soon. What? I stare at him wide-eyed. What do you mean, again? He hesitates but finally speaks. Years ago, a little kid went missing in the toy section, disappeared without a trace. Cops searched everywhere, but it was like he vanished into thin air. Since then, weird things keep happening. Toys moving on their own. Employees hearing voices. You name it. He pauses, glancing away. The bear you saw? That's not just a toy. It's a sort of offering. We leave it out to keep things quiet. My blood runs cold. An offering? Steve nods grimly. If the bear's moved, it means the spirit's restless. It wants to play. He looks at me with a mix of pity and fear. Just leave it where it is next time. But before I can respond, a soft, sing-song voice drifts from the hallway outside. Why won't you play with me? It's the same voice, closer now. Heart pounding, I whirl around. The bear is gone. And when I look down, I see it. A tiny, child-sized handprint smeared on my pant leg, as if something small had been clutching me the whole time. I stumble back, horror flooding through me. Steve's face pales. Get out of here, Kyle. Now.
I've worked the early morning shift at this Walmart for years, but tonight feels wrong. The store is almost dead silent, which is strange for a place that never really closes. Just a few random customers meander through the aisles, mostly night shift workers grabbing snacks or the occasional bleary-eyed trucker. But even they seem quieter than usual, like something's weighing them down. I'm about to finish my stock count and clock out when I see her. The old woman appears out of nowhere, clutching her handbag so tight her knuckles are bone white. Her face is pale, eyes darting around like a trapped animal's. She looks right at me and hurries over, voice thin and trembling. Please, have you seen my husband? I can't find him anywhere. Her words hit like a jolt. I glance around instinctively, expecting to spot a confused older man shuffling nearby. But the aisles are empty. Something in her expression, frantic, almost desperate, makes me hesitate. I should call security, but she seems so scared, so lost. With a sigh, I nod. Okay, let's find him. But as we step forward, the quiet somehow deepens, and the air feels heavier, like the store is holding its breath. We start walking through the aisles, the fluorescent lights casting long, stark shadows. The woman clutches my arm tightly, her thin fingers trembling. Each step echoes louder than it should. Where are the others? Just minutes ago I saw a couple of regulars, but now, no one. A sense of wrongness prickles up my spine, but I keep moving. She keeps glancing around, whispering his name under her breath, like he might just pop out from behind a shelf. Don't worry, we'll find him, I murmur, trying to sound calm. But the words feel empty. Every aisle we turn into is the same, empty. Not a soul in sight, the shelves towering above us like silent sentinels. It's not just the emptiness, it's the way the store feels off, like it's waiting for something. We pass the electronics section, then the aisles with cleaning supplies, each row dark and shadowed. Finally, I spot him. The elderly man is standing in the frozen food section, his back to us, staring blankly at a row of ice cream cartons. His shoulders are hunched, and he's completely still. Too still. "Sir," call gently. Nothing. He doesn't move, doesn't turn. I step closer, keeping the woman beside me. "Sir, are you okay?" Slowly, his head tilts just slightly, acknowledging my voice, but his eyes remain fixed on the freezers. Then, without a word, he begins to shuffle away, movements jerky and unnatural, as if he's being pulled by invisible strings. He turns a corner, disappearing into the next aisle. "Wait!" I quicken my pace, pulling the woman with me. But when we reach the spot, he's gone. My chest tightens as I peer down the empty aisle, the woman's hand trembling harder now. "He was just here," I whisper, more to myself than to her. "Where did he go?" The woman whispers sharply, her grip tightening around my arm. I glance around frantically, scanning each aisle, household items, produce, even the deserted toy section. Nothing. It's like he vanished into thin air. My pulse is pounding in my ears, and the back of my neck prickles. "He can't just disappear," I mutter, trying to ignore the strange chill creeping through me. Maybe he went to the bathroom. Even I don't believe it, but I have to say something to keep her calm. She's shaking now, her eyes darting around wildly. "Stay here. I'll check the security cameras, okay?" She doesn't respond, just stares at me, lips twitching like she wants to say something. I pull away and hurry to the small security office at the back of the store. The place feels emptier by the second, the fluorescent lights buzzing softly overhead. It's like I'm the only person left in this entire Walmart. I sit down, hands trembling slightly as I pull up the footage. I rewind through the last few minutes, eyes locked on the screen. There's the frozen foods aisle. There's me with the old woman, but no man, no one else at all. I play it again, slower this time, scanning every inch of the footage. Nothing. He was never there. A cold knot of fear tightens in my gut. I rewind further, all the way to the moment I met the woman. No sign of him entering the store either. I shake my head, heart hammering. That's impossible. I saw him. I glance back at the woman, who's standing in the doorway, watching me. Her face is different now. The fear is gone, replaced by a look I can't quite read. Her eyes sharp, almost hungry. "Where is he?" I stammer, half expecting her to lunge at me. She smiles then, a slow, unsettling curve of her lips. "He was never here, dear." The silence stretches unbearably. I open my mouth to demand an explanation, but before I can speak, the store's PA system crackles to life, the sound distorted and grainy. I freeze as a low, breathy whisper echoes through the empty aisles. "Don't let them find me." The words send a shiver racing down my spine. I spin back to the security feed, eyes wide. My stomach drops as the screen flickers, and suddenly, the woman's face fills the monitor. She's impossibly close to the camera, so close her eyes look huge and dark, like twin pits boring into me. Her lips stretch into a grin that seems to split her face. "Don't let them find me," she whispers again, the sound crawling through the speakers. I stagger back, heart hammering against my ribs. The camera feed glitches, her face distorting and twisting, then gone. The screen shows nothing but empty aisles. I whirl around, half expecting her to be right behind me, but the doorway is empty. No sign of her. No sign of anyone. Hello. My voice sounds small, almost swallowed by the vast, quiet store. I take a few shaky steps forward, straining to hear anything besides the blood rushing in my ears. The aisles stretch out, barren and deserted. I run back toward the frozen food section where I last saw the man, but it's empty too. The store feels wrong, like I'm standing in a place that shouldn't exist, in a moment stretched too thin. My breathing quickens, my eyes darting around desperately. "Don't let them find me," the whisper repeats, softer now, almost pleading. It's coming from everywhere and nowhere, circling me, wrapping around me. I'm alone, utterly alone. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the PA system cuts out, leaving me in thick, oppressive silence. I stand there, heart racing, the empty aisles stretching on endlessly.